my Zoom. How's everybody doing? It is 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time in Dallas, Texas. Let me move this here.
And we are Cesar and Pam with cesarandpam.com.
And we want to help you grow your business, your career without losing your family in the process, specifically in the area of parenting. And today we're going to talk about a subject. We just had our Spanish Facebook Live, and man, it made me cry because a friend of mine, Eddie, was sharing about this. This year, 2020, with the whole pandemic and stuff, we have not been able to touch each other as much as we usually do. And that's the subject of this live. Do you touch your children, your kids? And if you don't, why not? And we're going to talk about this book really quick, just really briefly. The 5 love languages. And one of those love languages is physical touch and closeness. How important is it? And did you grow up in a household, in a home where affection was communicated all the time?
I feel like I did. I mean, I never think of it being a lack. I know when I married Cesar and we went to Mexico, I thought, wow, we don't kiss each other like down there, you know, but.
In Mexico, you mean? That's not funny.
In Mexico. Why down there?
Oh, man.
We don't.
Keep going.
Okay. Anyway.
But we do.
But we would always give each other hugs. You know, I felt like there was a lot of love and affection in my home. My dad's not super expressive, but I don't know. I just knew it was very meaningful. So I didn't feel a lack. I know that you did, you know. I remember hearing the story that when your grandfather told your father when he was holding you and you were just a baby, and he said, "What? Now are you gonna breastfeed him now?" And that your dad was never that affectionate and holding you and touching you after that. You're like, oh.
Yeah. And that's true. I mean, sorry.
No, that's the opposite of what we've been talking about. We're talking about the blessing, and it's something that we want to pass down from generation to generation to our children. But instead, from your family, from your grandfather, he gave your father the impression that to be affectionate with his children would be weakness, right? Yeah.
So check it out. The first step is empathy, right? Like if you didn't receive something from your parents, well, look at how they grew up, right? Both my mom and dad didn't grow up in a very affectionate environment either. So how are they going to do something that they didn't know about? So that's what we want to do with you today, and come to you not from a place of perfection, like, oh, look how we do it, but from a place of like, man, it's taken me years, decades to learn some of the things. Even this year, I've learned a lot of other insecurities I've had. And that is one of the greatest gifts that God gives us in having a family. When you have a family, it reveals things that you're struggling with. So if you have kids, you can write down in the comments how many kids do you have or the ages of them. And if this is something that you have struggled with, or that it's an awesome thing that was passed down to you from your parents, that physical closeness that is so necessary. In the series you were watching called The Chosen, I don't know if you all saw that series. It's an amazing series of the life of Jesus, and they portray him in such a human way. And I was so impacted by the scene of the leper who came to Jesus and the disciples were like, "Get away!" You know, a leper was not to be touched. Can you imagine nobody touching you for years? Very similar to what is happening this year with the pandemic. How many people are dying because of lack of physical contact? More negative effects are coming from that than from the disease itself. So anyway, the fact that Jesus touched him and healed him, I thought it was just so powerful. And that is something that we can do to each other, to our families, as we go through this year and as your kids grow up. I was reading about this story on the book The Blessing from a professor in a university, and first day of the class of the year of the semester, she would have all the students say their name, where they're from, something they liked about themselves, and something they didn't like about themselves. So they went through it until they got to the very end of the room, and there was one girl sitting in the very back. She had red hair covering her face, and When it came to her turn, she didn't say anything. So there was an awkward silence. Finally, the professor came and sat next to her and asked her, "So, honey, what's your name?" She said her name, Dorothy. And then she uncovered her hair and said, this is what I don't like about myself. And she had a birthmark that covered half of her face in a regular shape. And the professor said, "It's okay, honey. God and I still love you." And gave her a kiss right on the birthmark. And at that moment, the author says here that she cried uncontrollably for almost 20 minutes. Soon other students had gathered around her and were offering their comfort as well. When she finally could talk, dabbing tears from her eyes, she said to the professor, "I've wanted so much for someone to hug me and say what you said. Why couldn't my parents do that? My mother won't even touch my face."
Wow. Can you imagine? I mean, as a mother, I can't imagine not touching my child, but you know, I know you say this, that we don't know what was going on with that mom, you know, what she was feeling, and usually hurt people. That's the saying we learned from our pastor at our church. And it's just so true. You know, we are often focused on just like what affects us, but what's behind that? Hurt people.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go help a dog that is injured, the dog might bite you because it's scared. It has a defense mechanism. That's what I was talking about earlier, that this year I've been uncovering in myself so many defense mechanisms of protecting myself from rejection. So ask yourself, if you're not giving affection to your kids, maybe you don't mean to communicate rejection, but are you actually shielding yourself from feeling rejected? And so you don't even try to reach out. So before they reject you, you push away so you don't feel the rejection.